A good morning to you. Welcome back to Morning Live. A final look at your sport news for today. Now, three-time world champions, the Springboks, are going into the Rugby World Cup, which will be held in France as the defending champions once again. The reigning world champions will announce a 33-player squad, which will be on national duty in order to return from France with the holy grail in rugby, the William Webb Ellis Trophy. To help us talk about this, we roped in a man who has represented the green and gold 127 times, and he is a World Cup winner. A good morning and welcome to the lanky Victor Matfield. I literally could not get a hug from Victor because the height is a bit of a challenge. But Victor, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thank you very much. What a big day for South Africa and all rugby supporters. I was on a show last night where we tried to see who's going to miss out. I mean, we've got so much talent in this country at the moment and so much depth in every position. It's going to be sad that there's a few guys who's going to miss out. And I know 2015, the day before, myself and John de Villiers sat in with Heineke Meyer, who had to tell the guys, listen, you're not in the squad. And that's heartbreaking. So there's going to be a few hearts that's going to get broken today. But might be one or two guys that we don't think is going to make it that will be there. And for them, it's going to be an amazing day. And
it's going to be very interesting. And before we talk about what normally happens in camp on a day like this, Victor, we look at the performance from the Springboks this past weekend. And I mean, it was a very convincing victory. So that doesn't even make the job of selecting the 33 players easier.
No, it doesn't make it easier because I think they kept the guys that was almost certainties back home. They gave a few of the guys that's on the edge a chance, and these guys really played well. We've seen it. I mean, if you go back to that Loftus Test match against Australia as well, where they thought it's a B-side, and the guys just absolutely played fantastically well on that day. So, yeah, like I said, so much depth in this team. I think the biggest question is the injuries. Siya Kolisi, the biggest question mark. Will he be ready to go to the World Cup? Will they take him with, hoping he can play a part closer to maybe the quarterfinals, semi-finals? Jaden Hendricks, very important. He was actually our first choice scrum half before he got injured. And then Andre Pollard. We know how important he is for the team as well. Will they be ready to go to the World Cup?
And those are the big questions. But typically, tell us what would happen on a day like this, Victor. 43 players in camp, only 33 are going to get selected. So by now, I'm assuming the players that are in camp already know who's in the squad and who's not in the squad. How does that all work out on a day like today?
Yeah, this morning they'll just get ready for the show. I think yesterday was the hard day. Yesterday was the day where the coaches would probably call the players that missed out in individually. So that's actually the worst thing. And I've been there previous times where you get a list of guys that needs to go see the team management, and then you almost know, listen, this is it. You didn't make it, and you sit outside the room waiting for them to talk to you. And it's always nice that they talk to you and they explain to you their reasoning of who they selected. But it's always a tough day because, I mean, this is a group of players, about 40 players, that's been working for 4 years, and they've got chances and they all played a part in the success of the Boks in the last few years. So, yeah, it's not an easy day, and it's probably the hardest day for a coach as well. They get a special bond with all the players, and to tell them, listen, you're not going, is very hard for them.
And just from a player perspective, I think every player goes into this, as you say, it's a 4-year preparation stage, believing that you've done everything possible to make this team. Let's talk about the expectations from a player point of view. I mean, if you're part of the 2019 squad, we're now moving into this France edition of the World Cup. How does that work for a player from a psychological point of view?
Well, I mean, this is a group that's been together for a long time. They've almost been together for 6 years now. There's probably about 5 or 6 guys that came in the last 2-3 years. But the core of that group is the 2019 group, and it still will be the core. I mean, the leadership is still the same guys there. So it's always nice. I've said to guys in our group, where we had John Smith, John de Villiers, Farida Priya, Bakkie Spuita, Donnie Rousseau, Skalk Burger. we played together for 8 years with the Boks, and we got so close. Our wives got close, our kids got close. We knew each other so well, and that helps. It's good that the guys understand each other. They know how to get the best out of each other. So it's nice that we have a strong core.
And you speak about your wives and your children and that support system. The importance of that just when you're at this level of game and competition, also coupled with the fact that there's so much pressure from the fans that love rugby so much. I mean, I think every South African fan of rugby is an expert when it comes to the game.
Yeah, you always need those people close to you. Firstly, that's honest with you. When things doesn't go well, that supports you, that's just there to say, listen, we still love you. So the families are really important for the players. And I know with the Boks as well, we had Anne-Lee Murray there for years, looking after our wives, after our kids, because if our wives, our kids are happy, then the players perform better as well. And this is an older group. I mean, most of them are married, most of them do have kids, so that's an important role. I remember in 2007, we said, listen, for the first 2-3 weeks, we're going to focus just on rugby until the England game that was in our pool stages. And then after that, we'll bring the families in for a week and they can stay with us. So just so that you can get them happy as well. And then they're going to leave the camp again and we're going to focus on winning the World Cup from there. So how you manage the families is really important to get the best out of the players.
Now, we've seen you lead before, but we know that in terms of just your international career in South Africa, you played most of it under John Smith. We heard discussions just around leadership and captaincy and having the right person leading the team at the right time. And we heard Nick talk about the mistake of leaving Gary out in 1999 and how he still regrets this to today. How important is that person that you put into that captaincy role? And I know you speak about the possibility, is Sia going to be okay or not? If he's not okay, do you still take him because you know what he does for the team in the change room?
Yeah, it's a difficult decision to make. I mean, Nick talks about leaving Gary out. I mean, they lost with a drop goal. Gary might have been there and they might not have made the semi-final. So it's always just something you have a look and you look back at. I think if Sia is ready and he can be at his best, even if it comes to the quarterfinal, then of course I'll have him in the group. You'll have to give him 2-3 games where he maybe comes off the bench, play a part there. Then I think it's really important for the group. But if he's not going to be able to play in a quarterfinal, being 100% there, then I think it's very difficult because you also want to give the new captain, let's say it's a Dwayne Vermeulen, you want him to take control of the group. And that's so important. John and myself were very close, and most of my test caps was actually just a stand-in for him. I only had one opportunity at the end of the year tour, I think it was 2010, where he was out, and the whole tour I was captain. So I could take control of that group, and that makes it easier because off the field, on the field, everything is the way I think about it. But if John was there, then everything, it's John's team. I just stand in, I run in front on a Saturday, I make 1 or 2 decisions, but it's actually still John's team. So, yeah, it's going to be a very difficult one, and I think we're all waiting. That's probably the biggest selection that we're waiting for. Will Sia be there? Will he be ready to be there or not? And then the other one is Andre Pollard, also a leader in this group. He hasn't played for a long time, but I mean, when it comes on the field, he's the guy making decisions how we want to play, so he's also very important.
Important indeed. Victor, thank you so much for your time this morning and waking up for us, and it's so good to see you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I just have to throw in, if you on Betway, you have to make a bet. There's a risk-free bet. Don't miss out.
Marketing. I knew there was something attached to this, waking up so early in the morning. But thank you. That is Victor Matfield, a man with 127 caps for South Africa as the Springboks. Could have made 150, but he decided to retire and then come back to the game. But that's how we wrap up your sport news for today.